insensitive to your plight, but things just don't seem right. You hurt me beyond belief. Now I can't find no relief. Think I'll run for public office and try to make a change. Love up on your special interests, make a fortune in the stock exchange. Yeah, yeah, yeah. G-Man, he gonna come and get me, 'cause I'll sing about what they do. Guess I'll be a good and loyal trustee. They gonna lock me up before I'm through. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Think I'll run for public office and try to make a change. Love up on some special interests, make a fortune in the stock exchange. Yeah, yeah.
Today's show is sponsored by Farmer Joe's Fresh Market, located at 1401 Southwest Pine Island Road, located in beautiful Cape Coral, Florida. Everything you need and more, Lee County's greatest grocery store, Farmer Joe's. Now, you need to go out to Farmer Joe's. They got a lot of weekly specials out here. I know they got the pork steaks on sale for, I think, $1.09 a pound. And every Tuesday, there's a mystery BOGO. That's right, every Tuesday at Farmer Joe's, one item in each department is buy one, get one free. I'm not telling you what it is. You have to go find out for yourself. And we want to put a special thanks out to the amazing people from International Marble. Family owned and operated. For all your marble dreams, contact International Marble at 239-878-2200. That's 239-878-2200. Attorney, veteran, political commentator, businessman, Mr. Ford O'Connell is with us. You can find Ford on FordO'Connell.com. You can also find Ford O'Connell on X and most reputable news outlets. I am Smoking Joe, and welcome to the Cracker Culture. We appreciate you watching. Please subscribe, like, share, and leave us your comments. We want to hear from you. Ford, you're a busy man. You just filmed another documentary. Can you share with us what the documentary is about?
Absolutely. Actually, I just got done filming 2 documentaries. Both will be airing on Newsmax in the fall. The first one is about, it's called Shut Up and Play, and it's about how conservative athletes at the college and pro levels cannot actually share their viewpoints, because if they do, they will be canceled. Apparently, Hulk Hogan and Danica Patrick are going to be in it as well, so that ought to be a very interesting one. And the second one is somebody you actually is near and dear to you, did a whole thing on Elon Musk and his role in conservative politics, particularly his role in defending the First Amendment as a bedrock of democracy. I'm excited to see both. Hey, I'll be watching it for the first time when you do as well, Joe.
I can't wait, man. Both of those sound like they piqued my interest as soon as you mentioned the 2 that you're doing the documentary on. I mean, I really do like Elon Musk. I think that he's a genius in his own right. I know he gets a lot of flack, but hey, man, you can't knock him. He's the richest man in the world.
That's exactly right. And I'll tell you something. At the rate he's going, we're only, let's say, a quarter of the way into this century. And at the rate he's going innovation-wise, he might wind up being the person of the century. That's how consequential he is, not only in our national conversation, but also in terms of innovation around the world.
Now, both of these documentaries you said are going to come out on Newsmax. And when was that date again for?
We don't know when that date is. We just know they're going to be released in the fall. I did one back for Newsmax, I want to say in January. It was released in March, so March, April. So you get the idea. So it'll be about a 2-3 week lag time. We filmed it up in Cape Cod back in August, at the beginning of August. So I'm going to guess probably October.
Well, everybody's got something to look forward to. All our viewers, y'all got to tune in to Newsmax for that. Well, Ford, I want you to enlighten us to how the race for president has changed and how things are looking between Trump and Harris now.
Well, I'm going to be totally honest with you. If the election were today, Kamala Harris might become the 47th president of the United States. We're really back to square one. Obviously, for a year and a half, Donald Trump led Joe Biden. Now we look at the national average of polls. Kamala Harris is leading nationally by 1 point. Obviously, the national polls don't decide who the president is. It's going to be a handful of battleground states: Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada. And all 6 of those states, Donald Trump is either leading by a slight margin or Kamala Harris has caught him. So it's a brand new race. And frankly, a lot of Republicans should be worried and nervous at this stage with about 80 plus days to go.
I agree. Well, what does Trump need to do now? Does he have to change his strategy to defeat Harris, or what's the play for Trump here forward?
Well, there's some good news for Trump overall. First of all, traditionally, polls underestimate his strength. Secondly, he's polling ahead of where he was in 2016 and 2020. And to Trump's, another good thing for Trump is that Kamala Harris is polling behind where Joe Biden was in 2020 and Hillary Clinton was in 2016. He really just needs to do one thing, and that is tie Kamala Harris to the stench of Bidenomics, the fact that she was the co-pilot. It's all about inflation. This is the price of groceries election, Joe. And if he can tie her to the rising prices that we've seen over the last 3.5 years, he will be the 47th president of the United States.
Well, we only got 80 days and some change until election. What should we expect from the Harris camp to do? Should we expect anything that's going to shock us, or what do you think, Ford?
You're going to see a replay of the Biden campaign that we saw in 2020. She's going to duck and hide from the media, and her plan is very simple. She plans to become president by just not being Joe Biden. And to do that, she's going to distance herself from herself in her past socialist positions, and she's going to try to distance herself from her boss, Joe Biden. This is a way where she's basically going to try to fake herself and reinvent herself into being the president of the United States. It's totally absurd that voters basically, this is the proposition, vote for Kamala to find out where she stands. It doesn't get any more un-American than that, Joe.
Well, you can't help but say she's been in there for 3.5 years. She could have done something. She's the border czar, and our borders are as porous as a damn sponge. I don't understand why she's got the support she's got now.
Well, I think you're exactly right. If she had a plan to fix the border, or if she had a plan to bring down prices, she's currently the vice president of the United States, and Joe Biden's a vegetable. If she had a way to fix things, she'd already do it. The bottom line is she doesn't want to close the border, and she just wants to spend more money and put socialist price controls on food, which is only going to drive up inflation anymore and destroy the United States economy.
I agree. Now, Trump it's been a hell of a battle for him in this election. Well, in every election he's done, it's been tough. Now, with all the things he's faced, Judge Juan Murchan is going to go ahead with sentencing him. And on the 18th of September. Now, will we see Donald Trump incarcerated, Ford?
Here's what's going to happen right now. As of today, Donald Trump is set to be sentenced on September 18th for that New York business records violations, ridiculous case that should have never been brought. My opinion is, as of today, I have a feeling that Judge Murchan is going to turn down Trump's immunity defense, which the United States Supreme Court basically said this New York trial should have never have happened. And frankly, they can't enter into evidence and any of this stuff. But Murchan, this is all about politics. He's a political operative. It's not about justice. What he's going to do is he's going to sentence Donald Trump to jail, and then he's going to say, okay, you can bond out a couple of hours later. And the whole reason is very simple. He's trying to help Kamala Harris so the Democrats can say that not only is Donald Trump a convicted felon, which is ridiculous to begin with, but he's also been sentenced to jail. What they're trying to do is basically, this is lawfare. They're trying to incarcerate the political opponent just to help Kamala Harris win a presidential election.
Well, I mean, we talk about how she's trying to distance herself from Biden. However, she did do a thing with Biden the other day. She joined Biden and she praised him, how great he was and all this. I mean, it was just, she wasn't trying to distance herself from him that day.
Well, she's giving him the big bear hug right now in the George Washington obit for the worst president in modern American history, because she's going to have the DNC next week in Chicago. And the bottom line is they're going to try to reinvent Kamala Harris over that 5-day period on national television, from the worst polling VP in American history to the second coming of Barack Obama. So get ready for lies, and even more damn lies.
It's incredible to me that anybody that could support Kamala Harris after what we've just lived through. I mean, to me, this has been one of the most tragic times of our lives, Ford. I never would imagine growing up that we would be faced with some of the things we're faced with today. Women in sport, women in men's sports, or men and women's sports. Some of the crazy stuff, divorce, where they're pouring over, and people are illegal, not even from this country, that are voting. It's unbelievable. Never in my life would I believe I'd seen this.
I think you're absolutely right. We are at the most consequential moment of the modern era. And basically, remember, the Democrats also want to get rid of the First Amendment. They want to cancel and jail anyone who doesn't think the way they do. And that will obviously continue if Kamala Harris is elected, the 47th president of the United States. I think who we have to blame for this, honestly, is the mainstream media. Because over the last 4 weeks, they've given her the most fawning coverage of any presidential candidate in American history. To case in point, when she was installed as the Democrats' nominee, her favorables were minus 13, meaning people disliked her by 13 points. And today, those are even. How does that come about? It comes about because basically the mainstream media is lying about who Kamala Harris is and basically writing puff pieces. I think New York Magazine basically called her Camelot. If I was a Kennedy, I'd be rolling over in my grave at the abuse and ridiculousness and the lack of journalistic ethics that are going on today.
It's unbelievable to me. And we've seen so many snafus at the most recent Trump event. Another snafu that's only believable in our current state of affairs. Ford, please tell us, have you ever heard of a Secret Service agent leaving their post to go breastfeed?
No, Joe, I have never heard of that, and it's absolutely ridiculous. Let's remember 1 month ago, Trump was shot in the ear. Luckily, he wasn't killed, all because of a Secret Service screw up. And essentially, you'd think the Secret Service would double down and say, hey, you know what? We really got to do a better job protection, because there are no mistakes, because when you make mistakes, people die. But again, this week at the Asheville, North Carolina rally, one of the Secret Service agents decided to abandon her post to breastfeed a child. Let's be honest. If you have to breastfeed your child on the job, you should not be a Secret Service agent. Welcome to the DEI Secret Service, which is going to get basically America's politicians and important dignitaries killed.
Well, it would seem like they would at very least put her on the desk job until she could be active in the field with that. I mean, she's taking her baby to these gigs. This is unbelievable. I mean, she's not pumping it out. She actually bringing the baby to these events.
And not only that, she's out of the Atlanta field office, according to news reports. She also brought her family that wasn't vetted into secure areas of the Secret Service. There is an entire breakdown going on within the Secret Service. And, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but after Trump was getting shot, you'd think that anyone normally would say, hey, we got to tighten up the ship. But then again, it happens 1 month later, something like this. And let me tell you something. If this happened to Kamala Harris or this happened to Joe Biden, it'd be the biggest story in America right now. But because it happened to Donald Trump, basically you're only hearing about it on conservative outlets. That is truly the tragedy here. Remember, the power of the media is not just what they cover, but what they choose not to cover and bury.
Well, Ford, I tell you, we want to move on down to our local feed. And we are waiting on one guest that hasn't arrived, that's running late. But I'm going to go ahead and start with the
man's trash.
The man's trash. And I want to introduce, some of the people that I deal with. I want to first introduce a couple people. And we've been called crazy and things like that by other people. I want to introduce Mrs. Let's see who we got here. Denise Nystrom.
Hey, Smokin' Joe. Hey, Ford. It's nice to see you today. Thanks for having me on.
Great to be with you, Denise.
Denise, it's good to have you here. And Denise is a close friend, and we work real well together. She does a lot of research, and I can't say enough. The reason that I've asked Denise to be on here today is we are faced with a couple of serious issues, and we're only a few days away from the voting to be done here locally. And one of them is with our supervisor of elections. This is probably the most damning information we've seen. Our supervisor of elections, Tommy Doyle, information come across us where on his email to the SOE, he was emailing a subordinate that he was having an affair with. Now, look, infidelity happens in relationships. We see it all the time. And with that, maybe, okay. But two important keys here, and I'm going to let Denise talk on it as well. One thing that I can't get past is he, in his statement in an email, and I'll put it out there, I've got copies of it, he told his subordinate who he was having a sexual affair with that he sometimes fantasized that his wife would die horribly in a car crash so they could continue their relationship. I would never wish that on the mother of my child. I wouldn't do it to my children, Ford. Denise, I don't know. It's incredible to me that somebody would put that in writing.
I thought that sentence in particular, and I've gone through that whole email a number of times, it's the kind of stuff that movies are made out of. When you find out that something really happens to somebody because somebody is involved with somebody else. I can't even imagine putting something like that in writing. That's the tip of the iceberg, though, where Tommy Doyle is concerned, because, Tommy Doyle is a Terry Miller candidate, and you have coined the phrase Millerites, meaning those people that Terry Miller has put into office. And we know that in this county, that's upwards of at least 30 elected officials. And it speaks to the character of the people that Terry Miller is putting into office, Tommy Doyle being one of them. I think what's another thing that Tommy Doyle actually just recently did is there was that fake hit piece that was done on Matt Thornton saying that he intentionally voted both in California and in Florida. And Dave Elias, the NBC News reporter, who I think is probably in Terry Miller's back pocket, goes up to see Tommy Doyle. And what does Tommy Doyle do? He hands that information off to Amira Fox. Who's Amira Fox? Our state attorney. What's the common thread there? Terry Miller is all of their campaign managers. So what it also speaks to in terms of characters, that they don't really care who they hurt or the depths to which they hurt people. Matt Thornton, it happens that he isn't under investigation. The whole thing is just ridiculous. But that's not really the point. The point is that when you have a system where you take a supervisor of elections that'll hand something off to a state attorney's office where there could be possible ramifications, I guess you really don't care if you send people to jail. So this email that Doyle actually put out was mind-blowing, but I really think it speaks to his character in general.
Well, Ford, what happened here is Tommy had ongoing relationship with this employee, and we've even obtained the times when he had visited her condo because he had to provide his driver's license. So it's there, the times he was checking in. And during those times, him and her were both supposed to be working, and we were being paid by our tax dollars to have their afternoon delight or morning ruffle in the hay, so to speak. It's not fair. It's not appropriate. For what is this? Is this anything illegal? I know it ain't ethical, but is there anything illegal about this?
Well, look, these are still allegations. I think the Miami Independent has done a great job with this. I think people should pay attention to it because it does speak to the character of Tommy Doyle. Look, infidelity happens. I think everyone's right about that. I'm not excusing it. Doesn't make it right. But I think the fact that to have this entire thing swept under the rug based on the tax dollars of folks from Lee County, that is what should concern you, because Tommy Doyle may have his personal life, but the problem is when his personal life starts costing Lee taxpayers money. I think that's the real issue.
Now, I want to say one thing. Me and Ford have been talking about this before the Miami Independent even had this information. However, I would not let it out until I first tried to contact Tommy and make sure that he knew it was coming. I got no call back from Tommy. And I did call the office and put in some more records requests. But I just want the folks know that we were set on that information for a couple of days before it was put out, and simply because we do offer people the right to stand up and tell us their side. And of course, Mr. Doyle elected not to take our calls.
Well, Joe, and one of the other things that I'm concerned about is the fact that this Terry Miller campaign manager, who's Tommy Doyle's campaign manager, and also his cohort, Matt Caldwell, who's our property appraiser and state committee man, and other people, I think that they have direct ties to the governor. And my concern is that the governor has already endorsed one Republican candidate over another several times in this county, both in the 22 election and now again in the 24 election. And I don't want to see this just be swept under the carpet because people have connections, to higher places.
I agree. I mean, Ford, I know that there's a press release going to happen today at the courthouse on this matter. And what do you think the fallout will be, Ford? Will Ron step in here and say, and like he did with, say, like Patty Cummins' issue, and tell them to remove Tommy? Or what's going to happen, do you think, Ford?
I think the governor is going to stay as far away from this as possible until all the facts are laid out on the table. Unfortunately, we are so close to the primary election that unfortunately what's going to wind up most likely happening is by the time people get wind of this, Tommy Doyle will skate through the primary.
Well, okay, how is that not a conflict of interest with him certifying the election when he's, when he's right? We've got people already calling, asking him to resign. How's it not a conflict for him?
Well, I'm not saying it's not a conflict. It's just that right now we are dealing with allegations and there has not been a tribunal on whether or not this is a conflict of interest. At this point, we are speculating. I agree with you. It's as clear as day. But at the same time, you have to make sure that all the facts are laid down on the table before the governor or any third party actually gets involved with this.
Well, Miami Independent did a really good job because if you look at what they provided there, those were primary source documents. I mean, you had a legitimate email, you had the legitimate agreement with regard to her severance pay. So those were primary source documents. So I agree with you, Ford. They're going to, obviously they're going to have to do what they need to do. But I thought that they did a good job reporting it and giving the facts.
Well, they did. Joe, one more thing. I think something else that should be troubling here is we all often talk about transparency and good government. And yes, I understand someone's personal life is their own life, infidelity, not excusing it. But this was also a subordinate. The idea of using a power to, wind up having sex with a subordinate and then sweeping it under the rug in taxpayer money is, again, a double no-no. And I think that's what should also concern people, not the fact that Tommy Doyle had an irregular affair. It's that he did it with a subordinate and that it was swept under the rug with taxpayer money. I think that needs to be restated over and over because the concern of all Lee County residents should be good government and transparency and not this sort of fallout.
I agree. One thing that I did see is in one of his emails, Tommy said, I know you wanted to break this off over and over again. So this woman was clearly trying to get out of this situation, but he kept drawing her back in. So that, to me, that feels like she was coerced to keep her job. She's going to have to pay the piper over here.
Well, and if you read what she wrote, she actually talked about the fact that this was during COVID and that she was subject to certain illnesses and that she felt like taking this severance was the only option that she really had because she needed the money. So I just, I don't know who she is, but I feel for her because what did end up happening to her? I mean, was she able to get another job? I mean, we don't really know, but she obviously felt pressured to take what it was that they were offering her.
Well, you're broke. I mean, anybody will do anything if they're starving. I mean, the woman admitted she had no other income, nothing to rely on or nothing. And Tommy, and she said in her email that Tommy told her to just take back your complaint and we'll give you 20 weeks pay. And that's what she done. She needed the money.
Yeah.
It's sad, man, but it's the world we live in. And I'm sure more of this happens, but, I fault Tommy for not being smart enough. He used his SOE email. I mean, send her a text or something. I don't know.
They have a thing called WhatsApp. I highly recommend that if that's what you're
Well,
trying to do.
and I'll tell you, it's caused me to do a deep dive into the Miller candidates in terms of their backgrounds. And I am working on an article right now because there are an awful lot of Miller candidates that have questionable backgrounds. And it makes me wonder, how is he even choosing who he's putting into office? So that's going to be coming out later today, too, because we have a lot of very qualified people that have decided to run grassroots because they don't like what's going on. And then they manage to get them out of the races through all these PAC monies. But in the end, Terry Miller is not really putting stellar people in office.
But Denise, this is the whole point of the Millerites. They just work exactly like Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. It's all about holding power. It's all about making sure that the little round robin of the seats are filled by their people who understand their rules of the game, and none of them basically are acting in the best interest of Lee County or Lee County citizens. I think that's what's so tragic here. Not only do you have a cabal that's set up to protect itself and to make sure that Lee County residents don't have a choice in who basically represents them, but then at the same time, they're also doing it to make money for themselves on the side. That is what's truly tragic here. Well, this is why I call Lee County Chicago with an R next to it.
Yeah, and I mean, and when you look at their campaign contributions, what do you see? Builders, developers, and everybody that's related to that. Pavers and air conditioning people and plumbers and surveyors and architects. So we all know what this revolves around.
Well, exactly. It's a pay for play, and essentially they're doing all the dirty work for the special interests outside of Lee County. And because they're basically more interested in helping those special interests outside of Lee County, they never actually wind up helping Lee County. And I think one of the greatest bought and paid for people in the state house is actually Tiffany Esposito on this front, because I still don't know what she's done for Lee County.
Mm-hmm. Not a thing. And you brought that up about outside sources. At the county commission meeting I last attended, and I spoke on the toxic waste and stuff, and Kevin Ruane come out, and somebody had, produced the fact that Kevin Ruane and Brian Hammond both had their own PACs. So Kevin made the effort to come out from behind the desk and come speak to me out in the hallway. And he said, yeah, I got a PAC. And this is what he said to me. And I want y'all to think about what he said and what this really means to Lee County. He said, Joe, if you look at my PAC, all my donors are not even from this area. Wait a minute. Why are these people investing in our community if they're not from this damn area, if they ain't expecting something from Kevin in return?
That's exactly right. Look, let me make this a little bit simpler for a lot of the viewers. Political action committees are part of politics, but usually when people give to political action committees, they give so because there's already been an agreement to do a favor. That is why people donate to political action committees, particularly special interests, whether it be developers, etc. That is why they do it, because they expect to invest in the candidate, not to do well for Lee County, but to make sure whatever favor they want gets through up and through in Tallahassee.
It's incredible.
Well, about half of Terry Miller's candidates actually have political action committee. And when you do a deep dive into who they're giving to, well, first of all, they're all giving to each other. They're giving to Terry Miller candidates. They're giving to Terry Miller PACs. And it all comes down to being able to do these hit pieces on these grassroots candidates that are basically bold-faced lies so that they can sabotage their campaigns. And you're right, Ford, because that way the promises get delivered.
Well, yeah, and it's just incredible to me. And I'm going to move on from this, and we're going to talk about the toxic dumping and the candidate Dave Mulicka, which, I mean, this is really, if you're going to turn a blind eye on anything, don't turn it on our environment. And this is what the Lee County Commissioners has done here. And I was hoping Ms. Perez be here to describe this, because this is an area where she lives. But I'm going to show you, this is the property right here. And if you look at that property, you see that waterway? Mm-hmm. Well, look right here. This is all coming from where Dave Mulicka has been toxic dumping, and it's leading right into the 10-mile canal. And people need to understand, all these arrows are already outlets that are going into our waterway. So he has contaminated our groundwater, our surface water. And in years to come, what is going to happen when we already have the DEP? 600 pages. I know Denise has been looking at them too. We've got 600 documents from the DEP saying that he has done this since 2019. He has not rectified the situation to this day, no matter how much he lies and says he has.
Well, and you're talking about arsenic, benzene A, lead acid batteries, propane, vehicular fluids. I mean, you're talking about some
Hold
real.
on, folks. We got a special guest here. Hold on. Here she goes. Hello, Miss Perez has joined us, and we are talking about the topic I wanted you on here for. We are talking about Dave Mulicka and his toxic dumping. And I just showed this, and while Denise is on, Jacqueline's on here, this is what we were talking about, Jacqueline. This is the property, and you know more about it. This is by you, correct?
Right, correct. This is the property where it's been contaminated, and it comes over and runs over into that canal. That's there. This canal, the Briar Cliff, which leads a little tiny bit, if you go further down, into 10 Mile Canal. And 10 Mile Canal happens to be a protected canal because it feeds into the Estero Bay estuary.
Well, and why are the county commissioners not more upset about this? That this makes no sense to me. I think everybody ought to be raising Cain about this.
Oh, well, besides the fact that they're pieces of shit, let's talk about them being very corrupt.
Mhm.
You know, it's an all boys. So, they're in there to protect each other. It's an all boys club, a good old boys club where they're going to have each other's back, no matter how dirty or whatever they're doing. Their agenda is to, lock arms and protect one another. They don't care if Mulicka murdered somebody and buried them in that property.
Well, I'll tell you, and those documents, I don't know, Joe and Ford, if you know this, but those documents, all 600 pages of them, have been sent to the Conservation Foundation for Sanibel Captiva. They've been sent to Captains for Clean Water. They've been sent to all of the news stations. I know, I sent them. They were sent to, I'll just say it, they were sent to Beach Talk Radio. In fact, she was reading those documents right in front of me. I mean, it was plain as day. Not one person, one organization has picked up this story to tell the truth about what is going on with that toxic dumping.
I'm actually surprised that Wink News, of all the news organizations in Southwest Florida, hasn't picked up on this, because if anyone understands what's going on there, it would be someone like Lois Tomey at Wink News, who does understand that basically Southwest Florida only goes as far as its environment and its waterways. And frankly, we're in the heyday of Southwest Florida, and you cannot be letting this happen, because if not, what we call home is not going to be home very much longer.
Well, and you have these elected officials that know that he's been toxic dumping, and yet they're endorsing him anyway, including the mayor of Fort Myers Beach.
Ford, I reached out in December when we first got a hand on these documents, and I reached out to Wink, I reached out to Fox and the News Press and the Naples Daily News, and no one wanted to touch the story, whether it's because it's the Mulicka name or whatnot. But even when we went to visit DEP a few weeks ago and we spoke to the investigators there, they happened to mention that Dan Eagle paid them a visit to intimidate them. Dan Eagle told these girls, do you know who this is? Do you know that he's married to your state representative? And do you know who she's connected to? The governor. So I want you to remember that. That's what he told the investigators from a public state agency. But that shows you the type of corruption and how they feel, how ballsy they are to go after another public employee that are trying to protect the environment, who are trying to do their best and enforce the state. These are statutes that this man has broken.
Let me also be clear that let me throw one thing in there. When we say DEP, we mean the Department of Environmental Protection, but also Dane Eagle is in bed with Terry Miller. Dane Eagle has long been Terry Miller's biggest client. Yes, Dane Eagle might have done excellent work for Governor DeSantis, but at the end of the day, now that he's no longer in the governor's office, who is he working hand in hand with? Terry Miller. Who are we
Ballard
talking
Partners?
about?
That's exactly right.
Terry
As a
Miller's
lobbyist.
Right. But just, the audacity, to go there and try to throw your weight around and tell these investigators what they should and should not be doing, when they've been trying to tie this man down for 5+ years to remediate this property?
It's incredible. I mean, like I said, in today's standards, nothing shocks me, but this does, because, you talking about the information's been sent to Captains for Clean Water. Dan Allers, the mayor of Fort Myers Beach, is a member of Captains for Clean Water. Where the hell's he at with this? I mean, I lived on Fort Myers Beach for a number of years, and, I can't recall any mayor in my lifetime that didn't want to do what was right for the environment down there, except for Dan Allers.
So then you have Matt Thornton, who's running against Dave Mulicka, who puts in $175,000 of his own money, because in the end, when elected to office, he doesn't want to be involved in any pay for play or owe anybody anything. And what does Terry Miller do? Use his PAC, to put out 5+ hit pieces on him that are all lies, and to take him out of the race, to call his character into question.
Well, that's always been the Miller way, is that they're going to protect and lie and cheat. And after the primary election's over, if the facts don't match up, it doesn't matter, because they're just going to move on to continuing doing the same thing. I think here's what's truly despicable beyond all the dumping and everything else. We talk about democracy in Lee County. We talk about democracy in Southwest Florida. Remember, Dave Mulicka is married to Jenna Persons, and the father-in-law is Armor Persons. How much more nepotism do we actually need in Lee County before the voters stand up and say enough?
Yeah, we're the cronyism, nepotism capital of the state for sure.
Which is saying something compared to the Panhandle.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean, I think the work, Joe, that you've been doing, and Ford, that you've been doing, I think that has shed some light, making more people aware of what's going on. I know the work that Jacqueline and I do, that's shedding some light. I think more people are aware now, but are enough people aware? Probably not.
No.
Oh, I agree. And I can't say enough about these ladies. They do work hard at digging out the information, and they find things that I'll be looking for, and it might take me longer to find it, but they get it to me. So I do appreciate everything they do. One thing I wanted to say is, when we talk about these candidates, and I don't have no internal hate for these people. Now, I put out my choices of who I think are the best candidates. And the reason I did this is because nobody inside our area, no media source, is going to promote these grassroots candidates. That's just like the deal with Tommy Doyle. That would have never aired here if it hadn't went outside the area. It had to go to Miami because no local source is going to cover it. That makes no sense to me.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and I don't think they're going to cover it anyway.
No. It's like, as long as I'm part of the cabal, I can do whatever I want to, and everybody's going to protect me. And that's what's happened with Mulicka. And we're going to see the same thing with Tommy Doyle. They're already hunkering down. And I really hope that somebody outside this area with some juice will step up and make this known. Because, look, the three of us, Ford, besides you, there is several podcasters, and what you included. There's several other podcasters that have tried to defame us. They've said we're crazy. Well, that's what they said about Trump. Trump was crazy too. Well, I'll be crazy all day long, but everything we produce has been 100% provable facts. We've never put nothing out that anybody could call bullshit on.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Now, Jacqueline's late to the game. We earlier talked about the situation with Tommy Doyle, and I know that you're familiar with the Doyles. And how did you feel about it after you seen those emails, Jacqueline?
I was really disgusted, especially with the comment he made about fantasizing about his wife being killed in a car accident or dying of natural causes, whatever natural causes he was fantasizing about. If he has such a lack of fidelity and consideration for the woman, the mother of his children, and his wife for maybe 40 plus years, imagine he doesn't give a hoot about the voters. What fidelity does he have to us?
Well, if his wife can't trust him, how can we?
Yeah.
And things happen in relationships, but I don't think that people do what he did in abusing his position of power to take our money, our taxes to pay for his pleasures. You know, he wasn't having an affair after 5 p.m. He was doing it during the course of the day. They were ordering pizza at 12 noon on a Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, you know, and being there until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Shouldn't he be sitting over there at the supervisor of election and taking care of issues over there?
You mean doing his job? Which
Yeah, yeah, right.
do.
Yeah, there would be that. There would be that.
The other thing is this was so intricate, and this has been going on for enough time, and using a position of power over someone else makes me wonder, is this person the only person Tommy Doyle's done this with? We don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what,
Yeah.
I've got a records request for his email, since he likes to send personal notes on his emails, so we'll find out soon enough.
Oh, he was really smart for it. He used his campaign email, which is open for public records.
Yeah.
I said it. I don't understand how, if you're going to do something this awful, okay, why wouldn't you at least cover your backside? And,
No
not only are these people not doing what's in the best interest of Lee County, they're stupid.
Yeah.
And that's what's so amazing. And yet,
how do we trust this guy with our voting? You know,
it makes them even worse.
Yeah, and like I said, it's par for the course in Lee County, and we all have our feelings about this. And the Jacqueline's here. Now, one thing I think we need to really hit on is the privatization of Lee Memorial Hospital while we're here. And the reason I bring it up is we were supposed to have like a 45-day wait period. I think that's what it was, before that they decided whether it was going to go private. Well, this morning, my wife had went to my mother-in-law's, and after she dropped the kids off, and my mother-in-law said that her husband had to go to his doctor. He was diagnosed with cancer a couple years ago. He had to go to his doctor for his pain management because they gave him medications, and it would be his last time because they were closing down because Lee Memorial was going to privatization. It seems like it's already done. If these other offices are already closing down, there's nothing for us to say. They're going to do it, and they're going to shut. This man is on medication that is hard to come off of. Now, what's that going to say for the rest? What's that going to say for the people on Medicaid? I mean, Medicare. I mean, these people are going to really suffer under the privatization of Lee Memorial, in my opinion.
Well, and my understanding,
interesting enough, the person who brought over this legislation and had it approved was Adam Batana. And these big contributors to him were a lot of these hospitals. These lobbyists were contributing to his campaign. He was
Danny DeVito. Imagine that, or Danny DeVito brought it forward.
and then in addition to that, it's not a referendum on the ballot. It's being decided by county commissioners.
Right.
So they're not really asking the people for their input. And I understand that was based on some law that or some bill that got signed into law. I mean, I'm not 100% familiar with
Adam
that.
Batana's bill. That was Adam Batana's bill last year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like I said, if you put the village idiot in charge, you get what you get. Anyway, but I'm more concerned with the long-term effects I don't think people are seeing with this privatization of this hospital group, because if they're setting this, and my concern is the commissioners deciding this. These commissioners has told us, Jacqueline, that they had no clue of certain things we brought to their attention. They claimed they had no clue about the Mulicka toxic dumping when we brought it up. Now they're going to claim they had no clue about Tommy Doyle. Well, if y'all don't know any damn thing, y'all got no clue of anything, then why in the hell are you setting up there? Put somebody out there that's going to research or look, or have somebody at least research for you.
Yeah, I think they know very well what's going on. They just are not going to acknowledge it publicly. I had a conversation with someone before I got here who conversed with Matt Caldwell, and he told them that this wasn't a big deal, the whole thing with Tommy Doyle, and that it'll blow over, that he told Tommy Doyle to plant his feet firmly in the ground and stay put.
Well, there you got it. So the cabal is lockstep again.
The only way to replace the county commissioners in Lee County is very simple. You have to, in each race, get 3 to 4 qualified candidates, because if you get 3 to 4 qualified candidates, then Terry Miller can't run hit pieces on every single one, because then he won't have enough money to do it. At the end of the day, that's what has to happen. You cannot continue to allow a Terry Miller candidate to go one-on-one with a grassroots candidate. You have to have multiple candidates in there who can pull at least a significant portion of the vote, because if you can do that, then you can eliminate Terry Miller and all the nonsense that's going on.
It's very smart. That's a good point.
So now let's bring it to this. So we know the school board is corrupt. We know the county commissioners are corrupt. We know the municipalities are corrupt. We know Terry Miller is the puppet master behind a lot of this. So look where we're living.
That again, like I said, and it's a shame, because the grassroots candidates and Denise and Jacqueline and you four, y'all all three ran for public office in this area. Y'all know what you're faced with, and it's hard. Like Matt Thornton, I mean, I've talked to Matt pretty regular. I talked to Matt last night. It's got to be a tough go. They're attacking his business, his wife, her son, whoever's business down the beach, and that's all. Ours is in competition with them. Let's get real. And then look, I'm gonna say this, and I don't care who it pisses off. I try not to talk about these other shows. I hear podcasters. If they're saying stuff I don't agree with, I don't give them no credibility. When you've got a couple of look like they're eating steroids in their early days, or they're winos that found a microphone, coming out and calling us crazy, we ain't putting nothing out live. Matt Thornton made a comment that his wife was looking to open up a shuttle business. What does this podcaster do? He comes out and claims that the Thorntons are going to run a golf cart shuttle business from the beach to the airport, which is nothing like what Matt Thornton's intended comment meant. They were going to do a shuttle bus from the beach to the airport, offer that service, which is a needed service. Every day online, you see somebody needing a ride somewhere to the airport or somewhere else. This is what I'm saying. These people, they get in bed with these cabals, and they'll say anything. They don't care if it makes them look like jackasses.
Let the ladies go. Trust me, I've said it over and over. I mean, I'm running out of ways to say that Lee County's corrupt.
Well, okay, so
let me ask you a question. You've traveled a lot all over the country, and you've traveled all over the world. And I'm sure you've seen this type of corruption, especially in small towns, right?
Yes.
What happens? What has to happen majorly to impact a town like this to happen, to have that rollover change, that shock factor that makes people wake up? Because we're having a hard time generating that force, because I see it happening and I'm outraged. I can't believe it. I'm like so disappointed in so many people and disgusted. Why can't we elevate that, or what are we doing wrong to not wake up the masses? Because everybody should be outraged.
Well, you first, you have to do what I was talking about, a coordinated primary effort, because you have to actually make people pay for not doing a good job. The other issue that we have in Southwest Florida, whether it's in Collier, whether it's in Lee, whether it's in Charlotte, is the fact that we have a lot of newcomers. And a lot of newcomers who don't know, and they're just happy to be in a place where they can actually talk about Republican ideals. So therefore, they'll go, oh, I got to go along to get along. And then by the time that they realize that the whole place is corrupt, they're just saying, hey, this is the in crowd. I better stick with it, because if not, they're going to make trouble for me. That is the whole problem, is
right.
The fact that the cabal not only, protects their own, but they go after anyone who threatens them, even if they're telling the truth. I mean, that is the whole point here. And the lead hit person usually in Lee County and going after people is Jenna Persons. She is the one who is the nastiest when it comes to making sure that if you speak out against the cabal, you pay.
Well, let's bring some of the other dynamics into this. I mean, I think Joe is right. We need to hit on this. So, okay, so you have Terry Miller at the helm with his buddy Matt Caldwell and Dane Eagle, okay, deciding who's going to get into office. And then you have the Lee County Republican Executive Committee, and they used to be in charge of that also up until at least December of 22, where they lost their seats to some America First candidates. So that's been running better, because you don't have people answering the phones there telling you who to vote for, throwing away your campaign materials, and they're at least trying to be honest and ethical. Okay, but they still have control over at least 7 Republican clubs. And all of those people that are running those Republican clubs, they're in bed with Terry Miller. So they're using their Republican clubs to parade around Terry Miller candidates and convince their members that those are the best candidates. And then you have the elected officials that show up to those meetings and basically endorse the Terry Miller candidates in front of everybody. So it's.
I think you've nailed it right there, Denise, about how deep and wide the corruption is among the Millerites.
Yeah, it's deep, and and then you go into the PAC money and the fact that Terry Miller himself is not only a campaign manager, but he's a lobbyist. He works for Ballard Partners on top of all of that. He's an affiliate of Neil Builder, which is $1 billion builder, and I think he's an affiliate of other builders as well. So it's so deep. It's just so deep. And this has been going on for probably the better part of, 10, 12, 14 years. And in the end, I'm not going to mention any names here, but there are a heck of a lot of people that decided to run as grassroots candidates that were significantly hurt by these people, mostly financially, whether it was all of a sudden they had to go to court to prove something or the other that they were accused of wasn't true, or people started showing up at their businesses and citing them, code enforcement citing them, they have the news media lying about them. They have podcasters lying about them. I mean, there's a long list of people, and afterwards, those people just go, oh, dark hundred, because they realize that they have a life to live, and they decide that they're better off just being out of politics.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the only person, at least that I can remember, that was able to put Terry Miller in his place was Connie Mack.
Yeah.
Remember, Connie Mack basically got Terry Miller knocked off as the chairman of the Lee County Republican Executive Committee. And since Connie Mack, no one has been able to point this out and show how bad it is, not only how much they're lining their own pockets, but how bad it is for Lee County.
Well, and I'll tell you what a number of the Republican clubs did. And one was the Cape Coral Republican Club, headed by Andrew Sund, who's running for state committee man, and Kevin Carnes, who's our district clerk of courts. And then, of course, the Trump Club, you've got Doris Cortez. Well, these clubs gave massive amounts of money to the Conservative Leadership Caucus, which is a PAC, which is also run by the Millerites. And so they were literally funneling club membership dues unbeknownst to the club members, because nobody ever voted on supporting particular candidates, and they can't anyway if the RPOF doesn't. And then they gave that money over to the Conservative Leadership Caucus, and then they turned around and they gave $9,250 each to Andrew Sund and Chrissy Houlihan to run for state committee man and state committee woman.
I think, frankly, you should just take all of that, package it up, and send it up to Evan Power in Tallahassee, the chairman of the Florida Republican Party, and see what he has to say about it.
Well, I will tell you that it has been, I know for a fact that it has been brought to their attention, and so far, nothing's happened.
That's the problem. We're going to have somebody with some juice that's not from Lee County, that's not beholden to the developers and the contractors here. We need some powerhouse from outside the area to come in and put an exclamation point on what we're trying to put across here. Because, again, me and Forrest talked about this many times. The average voter don't pay no attention to none of this. The president, the governor,
don't even understand the way it works. I mean,
you can ask, and I've done this. I've asked people if they knew who the mayor of Fort Myers is, and I can tell you, 8 out of 10 times they don't know. They don't even know who their mayor is.
Yeah.
So,
well, and they don't understand the dynamics. They don't understand how one thing is funneling into the other. Now, what's going to happen in December is that these county GOPs, there are 67 of them, because there's one in every single county, and it's comprised of the state committee man, state committee woman. That gets voted on in the primary. But the chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer, that's a vote of only the membership of those Lee GOPs. So what's going to happen this December is all 67 counties are going to be up for re-election. Now, I know when that happened in 22, it was kind of, said that approximately 30 of them got taken over by what we would consider America First candidates. What I'm hoping is going to happen this December is that those America First candidates in those counties like ours stay put, and that other counties start to turn into America First candidates, because we've got to get these rhinos out of these positions in the entire state, so that the RPOF becomes more of an America First RPOF. And that'll be a vote of the membership in December. So I mean, obviously there's going to be a fight for that too. And I guess both sides are hoping that they're going to have the numbers,
Well, guys, we're kind of running short on time here. I want to ask everybody if they got any final things they want to say. I'm going to start with Jacqueline. Jacqueline, you got anything you want to push out here that the people need to hear, that they need to really focus on right now? I mean, they need to get out and vote. We need to get out and early vote. This really counts. But a lot of people wait until it's time to vote for the president. But we really need people out voting for these local candidates. Jacqueline, what do you got to say?
No, just getting the word out to have people vote for the right candidates. Attending school board meetings. My big thing is the school board. And we have an entire board that's going to be filled with all Terry Millerites, which is really sad for me, really sad.
And we're fighting over here because I'm wanting to take my daughter out of school. Of course, I've got a stepdaughter that I can't deal with. But I really, with the current situation, with what's happening in the school board, I have no faith in them doing what's right to educate our children or doing what's right to handle the huge budget that they're over. I don't see them doing anything right in that manner.
Can I ask Ford a question? I respect your opinion, Ford. So I know that you guys did a show a while back ago on the investigation and the findings of the Taylor English. You and Joe spoke about it, that there was corruption. There were recommendations made from these investigators that over $80,000 of public funds was paid to do this investigation because Alfie Oakes dropped in a deposition his own investigation about the corruption with contracts and bid rigging. So they wait an enormous amount of time to put this investigation forward, to make the motions to have it done. It took 8 months. When they finally get it back, the investigators from Taylor English, this attorney firm, made the recommendations for everything to be sent to every law enforcement agency possible because they believed there was real deep-rooted corruption. The state attorney's office refused to investigate. The sheriff's department refused to investigate. The state did not pick it up. You can clearly see from the investigation, there were witnesses, there was documentation. It was quite evident in the contracts. Even the Florida Auditor General had stated that some of these vendors should return $3.5 million. The Auditor General said that state statutes were violated, and the school district never pushed these vendors to return millions of dollars back to the children. This would almost verge, I think, even on RICO charges. I mean, that's the route I'm looking at to go now, because if we can't even have our law enforcement agencies to look at these recommendations from an outside attorney group, what do we do? Is that a good, what do you think for a route? Now, this is probably off the record, but do you think me pushing it through DOJ or the FBI then outside of Lee County as to nobody pick this up? What do you think?
I think you have to pick one, and I think this is a great example. And you have to make such a stink over and over that eventually one of the law enforcement groups does pick it up. Until you make it their interest to pick it up, then they won't pick it up.
I understand. Thank you. Thank you. That's good advice. Thank you.
Denise, your last comments for the show, Denise.
Yeah. So, it's hard for voters to know this, but if they actually look at the campaign contributions of the candidates, that really tells the story. So everybody that I meet, especially with these county races, I tell them to go to lee.vote. And then I tell them to look up the campaign finance records. And I say, if you see PAC money, if you see builder money, if you see local elected official money, that's when you vote for the opposite person because you're voting for the establishment. So that does seem to resonate with people. It's just so hard to get them to know how to do that kind of research up front.
Ford, what you got, buddy?
I know that everyone is worried about Donald Trump and the presidency in 2024, but the best thing you can always do as a citizen of Lee County is know who your county commissioners are, because they are the people that affect your life most on a day-to-day basis. You have to hold your county commissioners accountable because Lee County only goes as far as our county commissioners.
100%. And folks, the intro to our show was the music was provided. Ford brought up the stuff in the Panhandle. It was provided by our friend Wes Herndon, who is, you can find his music at Wes Herndon Official. He also does the Driveway Liberty podcast. If you're in the Panhandle area, that's a great podcast handling local events. All shout outs to Wes Herndon. Check out Wes Herndon's page at Wes Herndon Official. And we really thank him for being a friend of the show. And he's a great friend of mine. And for Ford O'Connell, Jacqueline Perez, and Denise Nystrom, I'm Smoking Joe. I appreciate you joining us for Cracker Culture. And we'll come back with you when we got more information that you need to know. Love, peace, and gator grease.
Bye, guys.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you.